So we'll call the meeting to order. Would you please roll call again?
Brian.
I'm here.
Okay. Tyler.
Here.
Kim. Here. John.
Here.
And Deb is absent.
All right. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. We are good to go. All right. You want to lead us off, Lindsay?
I think Kayla has. Are you guys starting out? Is that right? Or are you?
Yep, it's in kind of co-presentation.
Co-presentation between Story Construction and Hala.
How did we lose the file? Did you pull it out?
No?
Okay.
It should be still there.
No.
Let me double check.
I'm missing the Haley file. But that's okay. I can look up here.
Who's starting out?
Yeah, it's still there.
It's just me.
It's still there.
Is it?
Yeah.
I just update, or I just opened up again and it's gone.
Do we need to bring something up that we're...
Oh, nope, it's
missing?
back again. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm good. Sorry.
Art's going to start us off, and then Adam's going to talk a little bit, and then we'll answer some questions.
Can we clarify kind of what our objectives are first?
Absolutely.
We already established a 22-minute meeting time.
Yeah, good with that.
So, I guess, broad, high level, so we'll go through and review, I think, some of the budget information that I sent earlier that you guys have seen already. We'll go through that, look at the big picture like we talked before. We'll talk a little bit about the contingencies that are still included in the pricing, and I'll just talk briefly about that, what that means moving forward and what that means now. And then, lastly, will be kind of the timelines for the bids, the approvals, and when construction will actually start. And I'll go through some of those milestones to finish up. So.
Perfect, thanks.
All right, and the document that Gail sent you, are you guys looking at the live document that is on Google Slides? Is that...
No, I actually just downloaded
You went ahead and
I did
downloaded,
a
okay.
PDF for them.
Gotcha. There's one extra slide that'll be in here, but
Okay.
you'll see it up on the screen. So, so as Adam talked about, scope, schedules, and milestones, pretty high level. We'll be going over today. So Adam, just to start off with, I've got a screenshot of the.
Yeah, so I'll dive right in. Does everybody have a hard copy? So, very high level, this spreadsheet here really tells us that we're about $93,000 under the overall budget. That overall budget includes some alternates that we included. There are alternates the first budget pass. We ended up including it in the base bid this time around. So right now, you know, this is really good news. We're in a good position. Ultimately under the original bond referendum budget.
So I think it is good news, and I think everybody knows, I mean, there's been several work sessions since our last board meeting.
Yep.
And I just want to point out that to Adam's comments there, that there's been $230,000 added to the high school classroom career tech lab from where we were last time. $96,000 added to fine arts, $122,000 added to the middle school classrooms, $62,000 to the middle school locker room, and $852,000 was pulled out of the baseball softball line from the last time we met. So if you compare that middle column to where we were the last time we sat down, that's the variance.
Differences. Yep.
Yeah, does that include the dirt?
The dirt's still in the baseball, softball.
That 800 does not include pulling that out?
No.
It
Okay.
includes grading the
There's
pile
still
that is there right now.
Okay.
There's still $300,000
Okay,
that were
that's,
found in that number.
okay.
But there was a reduction, a significant reduction in that grading.
In the utilities around it, yep.
Okay.
And really that change was the assumptions that we made the first time because we didn't have detailed information to actually getting the print with details on it. in being able to adjust our pricing that way.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
And we had a really good work session with the athletics group to value engineer that project, kind of really boil it down to what's the must-haves, and mission critical elements, and what are some things that you'd like to have. And so that's where we get our alternates list down here at the bottom. There's 3 there that are associated with that baseball softball complex. And those would be, if bids come back favorable, we can look at adding in some of those elements. Those are kind of wants that the baseball softball would like to have, or if the boosters are willing to chip in dollars towards some of those things, we can kind of isolate those kind of wants versus what is absolutely necessary. So that's where you get those 3 alternates that you see: storage building, fixed bleachers and press box, backstop padding, netting, windscreen.
I'm sorry, Adam, just stated, these alternates are actually included in the 14.126, or they're in addition to the?
They're in addition to.
Yeah, so just the point is that in order to get to those points, you have to add that in. That's the advantage of an alternate.
Yep,
You can add
accept
that
it.
in if the price comes in, as Art was saying, if it comes in below budget, you can add that. So.
Just so to clarify Adam's statement, since you brought the question up, John, the alternates that were woven in, and I think we've already spoken about this, were that had been folded into the base bid, originally understood as alternates, were some additional infrastructure for the food prep kitchen, the mezzanine at band, storage mezzanine in the band room, and there was one other thing.
And the sidewalk work at the middle school.
Yeah.
Also the locker, I guess the office / changing room at the middle school was also one of those in the infrastructure for that, because it's kind of that.
So those are now no longer considered alternates, but are folded into the base bid, just to further clarify Adam's statement.
You said you were going to talk a little bit about contingencies as well.
Yes, so
Brian, can you hear everything?
Not really. It'd be better if I could like move to the board table, I think.
That's what I was wondering. So you want to face these guys?
or at least maybe on.
It's very hard to hear. I don't know if there's a way to move me much closer.
Or the microphone.
Just get the microphone over.
The problem is, wait, hold on. The problem is that mic is not the one that I hear from. It's just from the computer, which is the bummer.
Okay. It looks like that's enough.
Gail, can you just move him next to
Can we scoot down? We
to
can
this
scoot
table?
down there.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
I was just wondering the same thing. 'Cause it's like-
The board is really short.
Hey, Fran.
Is that better?
I tell you, that's pretty accommodative presenters right there.
That's right.
All about Ryan.
Very close. Thank you.
Yeah, and raise your hand or something if you can't hear. Okay.
I'll whisper into Sam's ear.
All right. I'm right here, man.
So contingencies, we have contingencies included, a little different percentage depending on where the work is. So we have the most detailed information at the high school and the middle school, design-wise. So that contingency is at 6.5%. Of the 6.5, 5 is really a design contingency to help finish the design. There are things that weren't shown on the drawings that it helps close that gap, I guess, when we get to the next budget check. And then there's a 1.5%, so 1.5%. We call it a bid day contingency. That helps with the volatility in the bidding market. We've done some historical research, I'll say, and on bid day, if the low bidder didn't show up, sometimes there's a 2%, 1% gap to the next lowest bidder. So we like to protect ourselves that way as well. So currently there's 6.5 on the high school, middle school cost. And then the elementary intermediate school, there's actually 9%. So this last go around was more of a schematic design for us to price. As we move to the next level, the DD level, that percentage will shrink as we update our price because we'll have more details. And as you get closer to the bid day, that percentage keeps shrinking, and on bid day, it's essentially 0%. There is also a construction contingency included at about 5%. It's about $500,000 on the project, which just takes care of items that come up through construction. So if we go to the middle school and dig up and we find something underground that nobody knows about, it covers that. Or if there's a door that was missed on the drawings, it helps cover that. Anything like that that comes up through construction, that contingency will cover. So those are the contingencies that are included.
Soft cost, right?
Yes, so on the spreadsheet here, the owner soft cost is where the owner's contingency is shown. The other contingencies are just included in the numbers above it at this point.
So the owner's contingency would be described as the construction ones or the other ones?
As the construction one. Yep.
Okay.
Is that number, or that's embedded in that?
It's
number?
embedded in that number. So that owner soft cost total is the summation of kind of all the soft costs that are on the bottom of our spreadsheet, the bigger spreadsheet, which are the contingency, the FF&E, so furniture, fixtures, and equipment, printing cost, site survey cost, geotech report, and then the financing charge that you're financing through, and I can't remember, Piper Jaffray or whoever you're using. So that's what makes up that just over $1 million.
The bond interest cost in there too? No.
I
don't think so. I
that's
think
in
it was
there,
just
no.
the service fee.
Just the
Okay.
service fee, yep.
Yeah.
Do you have a round number, Adam, on what the owner contingency number is?
Yeah, it's $550,985 is what we have included. So almost 551. Any questions on contingencies or what's included at this point for that?
Maybe you'll get to it later, but we're going with a phased bidding, right?
Yes,
Doing
yep.
that.
Yeah, so that's kind of the next
So
step
that-
here with some of the dates, but
But
Go ahead
so
and
when
ask
you're
a
going
question.
through that, then that will also impact the contingencies, and then you can then tighten up,
Reduce
because
them.
you're done with bid 1, but you still have bid 2 left.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you can kind of explain that
Yeah.
maybe as we.
So I don't know if, do you have dates on any document at all, or I can hand out
It's
this
more
hard copy?
It's loading now.
I can just hand this out to you. So this just kind of shows the breakdown of the bid issuances. So package number 1, issuance 1, high school, middle school, that includes the bid packages that are outlined. So site demo, earthwork, utilities, concrete foundations, masonry, structural steel precast, and then roofing, metal wall panels, and flashing. Our milestone dates are drawings issued on the 16th with the bid date of the 11th. Review and approve on the 18th, and then start construction on the 1st. So in this first package, we would then reduce any contingencies that are on those bid packages would go to 0, and it would just be whatever the bid is at the time. That's what it is. Yep. The second issuance is, I'll say, the remainder or the bulk of the work at the high school, middle school, finish-wise, and then plumbing, mechanical, and electrical. Those drawings going to be issued November 9th with the bid date of the 13th. Hopeful review and approval on the 20th, and then start construction once we get contracts out. I gave a little extra time there for the holidays.
Adam, does this, is it the issuance 2 or issuance 3 that we talked about? You guys were wanting to move it up.
So 2 is, these dates are moved up.
Okay.
So originally, we were bidding issuance 2 in January, the end of January.
On this schedule up here, I kind of graphically represented that. We had, you guys maybe had seen that we were thinking about January for that issuance, just because of some of the timing of when construction is going to get started and when they're going to be ready for the next round of contractors. It makes sense to move that up, as well as we're fairly confident that we can get all of the design documents and everything bid sooner, so we have answers sooner about the overall cost of everything.
One thing too that's probably important to know there, so we do have time set up with the user groups, and this schedule, this accelerated schedule still allows for that. So our plan was to meet in September, I believe.
That happens a lot in this second design development phase. That's that user input phase. That remained unchanged. We didn't sacrifice any user input time to accelerate the schedule. It's mostly for our internal design and coordination. But like I said, we've reviewed it and we're confident that we'll still have a good set of documents to bid here on December 13th.
So the purpose of, excuse me, Tyler, you're going to ask a question.
I'm probably going to answer it. So.
Okay. So the purpose of that, where it says DD2, it's the second, it's the final kind of confirmation of the design work of those finishes, which is primarily bid issuance 2 is the kind of the finish package. So we've heard all the information from the teachers, administrators, and coaches, and we're folding that into the drawings. And we're going to have that ready for like their final confirmation at that time frame, at that September time frame.
Okay, so this is probably something that I already know the answer to, but as we put these out, if we have high school, middle school, we're putting it together as a package, right? We're looking for one company to do the work at both buildings. We're not issuing them as a middle school project and a high school project. I just want to understand. I have no opinion.
It's not one company. But it's one bid package.
Yeah.
Well, right, but you'll have like
companies.
one company that comes in to do the painting at both buildings.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only caveat to that, so the intermediate school, elementary school, so the architectural makeup of the work there is very low. So it's best not to break it up into a bid package for flooring because it would be $2,000 or something.
Sure.
And it's not very attractive to contractors to come and do that. So the intermediate elementary school, very high on the plumbing, mechanical work, and electrical work. So we'll have those 2 bid packages.
Right.
And then we'll have a bid package that is just a general bid package that will include all the other work.
All of the fine tuning?
Yeah, so all the finish type stuff. So we're putting in some new carpet, we're putting in some new ceilings, we're painting. So there'll be one, I'll say, more prime contractor that's in charge of that.
Okay.
But he'll have all the subcontractors under him to complete the work.
Okay.
So that's the only kind of difference between high school and middle school.
So Adam, did I understand you to say that what we would do in September, this could be to any of you, not just you, that we would be bringing our user groups together again and discussing, will it be the second package?
Yeah, so a lot of like flooring choices, paint color choices, coatings, anything like that. They'll be able to give their input on.
Very similar, like we did before school ended, correct? Okay.
Yes. This is just, before was kind of structure of what the actual addition looked like and where they wanted offices and stuff like that. Now it's more of the finishes, which comes later in the project as well.
So we did receive quite a bit of that information already, right? And so we've been folding that into our design process. Now it's just, do you want 4 drawers instead of 3 on your millwork section, right? So that's critical and important, but
more detail than what you have, right?
That's right. That layer, that additional layer, final layer of detail. It's that looks good. We're ready to send those out. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I think it would be good to just kind of confirm what communications need to be made. But I think that's a good one. I'm just apologize for being a minute or two late, but it was on a walk and was walking by the middle school, and Mike walks out. And so, hey, how you doing? And he wasn't exactly clear, for example, when the construction might start. So I think we need to make sure that we communicate these times really well. So, you know, not just the administrative team so that they know it, but the staff.
Yeah.
So I think as we're looking at those user groups, I think that's been, in my opinion, a home run. Just all of the feedback that you've been getting. It's been a lot of work, but it's been a home run.
Right.
Would it be important that we have the information from this first bid round before those, or I'm just trying to understand the timing such that you can make them as productive as possible. In other words, you'll know more once we get the bids in. But how much do we need to know in order to make those user group meetings productive, and you kind of know what your boundaries are?
Right, and I might throw another question on top of that. Would we be able to alter the finished design knowing the numbers that we get in September? We're trying to design it and get that finalized as much now in terms of the bid package 1. But you can never predict what happens on bid day. And ideally there's not much changes just because there's not much time to get everything folded in. But yeah, so that's a good question. Is there an opportunity to modify, improve, change after we get those bids, and then as we wrap up finishes? I'm just going to float that out to the team. And
yep, so we'll be about midstream in DD2 here when we get those bids back. So there's still a couple weeks that we could, if we had to, we could make some quick changes, confirm those via email with our user groups, make sure that they're all on board with that. But I'm fairly confident that we've built a good schedule that is going to be able to react to any
I guess
oddities.
Discussion for the board, but I would see the high priority ones, well, that's not going to change one way or another. Right? But for the ones that are lower on the list, well, there's 3 outcomes the way I would see it. It's either it's really close to what you were expecting and okay, go forward with what's kind of laid here. Heaven forbid the bids are higher, and so okay, what are we going to reduce? Or the flip side, bidding was favorable and we've got more to work with, right?
Right.
So that's why I'm trying to understand whether that would be some levers that you would be pulling in September, and by expediting that second bid, do we compromise really, or do you think that their time is, we have enough time to do that?
Right, good question. I think we do have time to react and fold some of that information still into the drawings from what I'm hearing and what some of the discussions up to this point.
Well, and quite frankly, in the second bidding, you know, I had a question last time about alternates and why there weren't more alternates. But it would be my assumption that with the aesthetic sort of things coming in the second bid package, that we might have more alternates, right? Like when we were doing the high school, it was, we're going to put in linoleum or some, I don't know, terrazzo or whatever. So
finish upgrades within that bid package.
So we'll have more, we'll have, the last project, we got a whole bid, right? And then we could come back in and add things and like put other things out for bid. In this circumstance, we're going to take a chunk of the money away, know what we have left, right? Before we send the next set of bids out. Okay, so we can really refine our opportunities, is what you're telling us. Okay.
We can adjust to, like Tyler said, if it's up or down that first go around. And we can adjust accordingly.
So but to even have a few, I'll call it finish upgrade alternates, wouldn't be the worst idea in the world either. You know, from VCT or vinyl tile to a terrazzo. You know, those are relatively simple. Some alternates like that could be potentially folded into it. You know, that once again, if we get 2 layers of favorable bids and we want to kind of clip that coupon, then maybe we do have a couple of those finish upgrade alternates that we could offer. I don't want to, I'm not trying to make more work for our team, but there's some alternates that we can fold in there relatively easily to accommodate a finish upgrade.
Sure.
Or 2 or 5, you know.
Yeah,
Probably
thank
the
you.
big difference from the high school is, I mean, some of those decisions were like the entire commons, right? And so
Sure.
here we're adding a few classrooms.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so
Yeah.
I wouldn't see it be quite as large a variance, but
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, we are utilizing the existing school precedent to, you know,
Sure.
Oh, maintain some continuity.
Yeah, through the
Yeah,
corridors.
but I still think there's opportunity for some of those, you know, fine-tuned alternates in there from a finish standpoint, so.
Well, the alternates listed there are under the issuance 2, which works out nice because this should be a little bit more meat and potatoes on phase 1, so like that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to put you on the spot, Adam, but do you happen to know at least a ballpark figure of what the breakdown is between issuance 1 and 2? It's going to be pretty significant.
I did at one point.
Are you talking the percentage of the dollars?
Yeah,
that
just
we
how
have
many
budgeted?
dollars are in the first one
Okay.
versus second versus third, so, let's see, that's about 2, 3.
Brian, can you still hear? Kinda?
So it's probably probably $3.5 to $4 million in the first one. The third one is about $2 million.
Yeah.
So then the balance would fall in that second one.
Yeah.
So if you're 4 and 2, 6.
So 8, like to back out the intermediate elementary
Yep.
safe and tracks is 7.5.
Probably gives you some good flexibility there.
Yeah. So I guess the point being that September is going to be we need to be very crisp with our meetings and
Yep.
be really ready as a board to say, yep, those are the bids we're going to accept. If there's any ditches we need to change, we need to do that pretty quick.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's
Right.
good observation, yeah.
And, you know, if there's some project teams that you think there really isn't a whole lot we're going to change here, you could dive into those early September for the project teams that, well, we want to know a little more information on where we're at, do those.
If I miss one on the schedule, we can always cancel it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go around, I'm assuming, fine arts, vocab, middle school, athletics.
It'll be the same group.
The same
groups
groups,
we met
right?
with
Same
last time.
groups, yep, same groups for all those.
I'll share a scenario that is possible with the CM approach. So the first issuance, and my name is Pat Dearden, I'm the story. We got 5 bids in the first issuance. There is a possibility that one of those packages has some irregularities with the bids that are received. And maybe we get to the point where there's only one bid that ultimately is legitimate. Maybe that's in excess of what the board is willing to spend on that particular package. These packages do not need to be awarded all in one lump. You can award 1 or 2 or all 5 at any point in time. You can reject an individual package or 2 or any set of that and rebid things at kind of your discretion. And so I'm not saying it's going to happen, but at the same token, don't be surprised if by the time we're done with this project, more than likely there's going to be a package somewhere along the way that's got some irregularity to it that's going to necessitate some discussion, and then that's okay, even to the point that getting some counsel involved is. Danielle will probably get involved. I talk to Danielle almost every time we have a job, and it's all good. But again, I often try to let people know that don't be alarmed. It's okay.
Not as simple as we think it's going to be.
Yeah, and this happens a bit more frequently with CM simply because you have more packages that you're bidding. As a single general, you can still have the same thing. Now you're affecting the entire project. In this case, we're affecting, 1 or 2 or whatever that might be. And so, again, we'll convert the dollars you're seeing to bid package values. So kind of as Gavin presents in future meetings, you'll see what the value of these packages are and whatnot. So again, we're here for the council to get you through it, and this is something that, again, don't be alarmed, but so there may be some special meetings at times we may suggest to say, hey, we want to put this package back out, and you'll be, just, that could happen. And so there's some flexibility as you get down later in the fall, probably could be necessary. I'm not saying it will for sure, but could be.
With that being said, on these timelines, I noticed there's about a week delay between the bid date and the review and approve a special board meeting. Is that because of the possible irregularities that you just talked about, something, or will it delay the timeline? That 7 days, like September 11th is your bid date. Okay,
Yep.
let's say the bids come in kind of, we have a strange situation. We have to get Danielle involved. So is September 18th still a realistic day for approval, or would that possibly change?
So I guess it depends is my answer.
Okay.
Maybe there's an issue with one package, and the other four are pretty straightforward, got good bids, we feel good about it, good value. We may come to you and say, we recommend, let's proceed on these four, but let's hold off taking action at that 18th meeting on 7.1, the roofing. Some of it will depend. So the site demo is one that is going to be the first package to start.
Right.
That would be the one that would be least convenient to have.
The roof can wait till you got walls. We don't want, the building around the demolition might be a problem.
Yeah, 100% correct. So we'll have a pretty good feel on bid day or within 24 hours after talking to some people, and can come back and say, hey, this is what we think we need to do. Act on all of them, a portion of them, and it isn't uncommon that we would act on 4 of them and maybe a couple weeks later act on the next. If it's simply delaying things for a week, we may say, hey, let's act on all of them, but let's do it a week later. So it, again, like I said, a little bit of flexibility is helpful, because as much as we like to be able to guarantee the future, can be unpredictable occasionally.
Are we locked into the lowest bid that we receive?
The lowest responsive bid, yes.
Okay.
And so there's guidance about what responsible and responsive is. By and large, if they fill out the bid form correctly and they have a bid bond and they're low, that's pretty much the people that you got to award to. Only in the most extreme situations can you not award to that low person. And Danielle will take a fairly conservative approach with that, because she wants to keep you out of litigation.
Sure.
And both of our firms will give you similar recommendations.
That makes sense.
And you keep the bid process tight, so there's not a lot of wiggle room that the bonding company's going to come through if it's
right. And
not
so
done right.
there can be times where people haven't signed the bid forms. We won't read the bid. The bid bond, we've had times titled to the wrong bid package. We won't read that bid because it's not a valid bid bond should there be something with that, some issue with that bid package. So there's a review process. As the bids are being opened, we'll put our eyes on them and say, okay, has it been filled out correctly? And so if you've had work done at your house, you get a quote that's got all sorts of, exceptions on it and exclusions and these kinds of things. In this case, that doesn't happen. They have to complete all of the scope. If they, on their bid form, make notations like, we're not including this, or we're going to substitute that, or anything like that, we won't open that bid. It has to be, that's qualifying your bid, and in the public sector, that's grounds for a non-responsive bid. So those are things that we will review. At times we'll make an announcement during the bid process about some irregularity. Sometimes they won't have acknowledged all of the addendums. That's a waivable irregularity. and how we would deal with that is we would make sure they would acknowledge it after the fact and the bid doesn't change. But, so there's kind of a set of things that are okay to deal with and a set of things that aren't. And again, push come to shove, we would get Danielle's counsel to say, yep, that's good or not good or whatever that. Not saying bid day, but within, within 24 hours.
Quick question. In us moving forward so quickly, all of this construction now is taking place during the school year. So, like, are you guys in communication with our administrator? How does that work? Because typically we do all of our construction in the summer when the kiddos aren't around. And I know the bulk of it's at the middle school and the high school, so they're not out at recess, you know. But how does this work
So
when we're doing it?
Intermediate and elementary school, that work is happening through the summer.
Okay.
So that's,
right.
It'll be through those months. The other part, so we'll erect the building from the outside, and when it comes time to poke holes, we'll do that at a time when students aren't there. So maybe in the summer, we'll do the demo work that we need to do with the exterior wall that's in between it.
Okay.
And do the work if we're putting in new doors or whatever it is. We'll do it when students are gone.
Okay.
There will be coordination though with the principals, with the teachers, and there will be times that we'll have to put up a temporary wall or something in some location, I'm sure, moving forward. We'll just have to coordinate that. The other thing that also came up the other day was making sure all of our exits and egress paths are still viable and still there for the kids and the safety is still there. So that'll be something we'll review with the fire chief as well.
Our last coordination meeting, we talked at length about making sure that we're not coming into the classrooms or the existing education space, trying to make sure that that work is being, there might be a few little connections for a roof drain, you gotta get an existing room, we're gonna try and do it during winter break or something else. So we're very cognizant of the fact that we're trying to keep everything safe and fully operational. And these projects lend themselves pretty well to doing that, but as Adam's saying, we're working from the outside, and there's going to be noise, there's going to be disruption, there's no question about that, but I think the team has worked really hard to try and get it so that, you know, it's really trying to minimize the impact. But then I think your question about communication with the administrator is a good question. I don't know what did you guys talk to the principals about and kind of reviewed with them? Is that already underway?
Just in general at this point, I mean, we're still early enough in the process to where that communication can take place now going forward, and as we have more of our dates refined here and things like that. So even as we meet with the groups in this second round, you know, that's likely when we'll have to take the opportunity as well to communicate that. But we can communicate now, you know, with these timelines. I don't think they've changed much since the very beginning, but in terms of the specifics of what rooms need to be closed when and when we need to poke a hole through a wall or what classroom needs to be utilized, we won't necessarily need to do that until maybe closer to construction time frame.
Okay.
So
the biggest issue is going to be exiting. Yep. And we talked about that at length Monday, even during our design coordination meeting, and talking to the state fire marshal. There's a number of exits where we're doing work covered up. Yeah. And so you talked about you guys are talking about protected egress, temporary planks, and we've done it before. We'll do it again in the future. It's not like it's the first time it's ever happened. Fire marshal usually will review and will give permission for that. But that's going to be a big communication issue, is trying to say only in emergency, please use these doors. Right. Like the one out of the by Votech, the north door that comes out by the classroom, that stairwell, that's going to be really a busy area. The one out of the north side of the band room. Middle school is not so bad, except for the fact the doors used the most out of the northwest corner of the band room. I mean, of the gym. That one, we're probably going to have to say, please do not use that, because there's a lot of work going on there. It's all, I think it's all, everyone's done a really good job of talking about it, planning through it. Now so it's communicating that and keeping kids safe, keeping people safe.
Day-to-day, our superintendent will be the person communicating with the principals about what's going on, and particularly as things are about to change. That's, I mean, but It wouldn't surprise me, Mr. Superintendent, to talk to the principals almost every day.
Okay. I think it's really important, though, that we communicate with our parents, too, so we don't have kids going home and saying, you know, I mean, we just really want our parents to know exactly what we're doing so they can reinforce what we're telling the kids, you know, so we don't.
Well, we talked about it a couple of months ago, and then, I mean, it's obviously into summer, but this is ripe for a lot of communication.
Right. Yeah.
Not just the timelines, but, okay, you know, this is where we came out, and so none too soon to get the communication committee going on it.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can double up a meeting on the next work session or a board meeting if we meet with the communications group before that or after, or even a special meeting if we need to, or double it up with one of our meetings with the teachers and administrators. We can start meeting with the communications team and fold some of that out. Brian.
You all hear that, Brian?
Would
Yeah.
your,
I think so, yes.
thumbs up? What about the back to school, the teachers? I mean, would there be a chance for somebody to present
Oh,
for
that'd be excellent.
30 minutes and give the whole staff an update and an overview, which, no detail, but just big picture, here's what's going to be happening in timelines, because that's coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it is, exactly.
So
It's
that's
really a
a,
great opportunity to get it in
Great
front of
idea.
the whole staff and hopefully then simultaneously be ready to communicate to the parents when they come back to school.
and that's a back to school date. What's the date on that?
That is for our staff, it's the 20th of August.
And that helps too, because that, a lot of the parents are gonna be, you know, that's a point of contact.
Brian, are you speaking that day?
I am, yes.
Okay.
This is a welcome back time
Yeah.
for the teachers.
Yeah.
For staff, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, on the 20th, okay.
And I think it'd be, if there's time in that agenda for 20-minute presentation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, one of you guys tag
Yeah.
team with Brian.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think
Yeah,
Deb's
that's not a
coming
problem.
too, but just.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can, I think the three of us or a couple of us can join Brian and offer an overview. We can even have, you know, the drawings or at least a cartoon drawing of where the construction is going to be and where we're anticipating exits and traffic, where it should go and things like that. And construction staging and things like that.
That's gonna be a really important piece at the middle school,
Right.
Yeah.
because you got water mains that's gotta be moved around, or disturbing parking, drive up, drop off, so excellent point. Get ahead of that, because that's gonna start happening, you know, this fall,
Right.
and, trying to be proactive and help not have much of disgruntled parents. If you can get that message out, to say, hey, this is really exciting, it's really positive,
Yeah.
it's moving forward, but unfortunately, no, you know, to borrow an athletic term, no pain, no gain, you know, I mean, you're gonna have some inconvenience.
Yep.
And I want to be safe, and actually, we talked about this Monday also, and that is the drop-off area for the kids and the buses needs to kind of be talked about, maybe transportation, and then also with Mike over there to make sure that we're all on the same page, because that's no one wants anybody to get hurt, but to get pinched for a little while. But when it's done, it's going to be outstanding, but it's going to be a little.
Well,
The major,
And it's busy.
I'm sorry. Perfect timing though, back to school night. I mean, if you talk to our staff and they are talking to their parents when they're coming in for back to school, you know, October 1st isn't that far behind first day of school, so we can kind of.
Oh, is that back to school night on the 20th, October 20th?
No, but like you'll talk August,
to the staff.
you'll talk
That's
to the
our staff.
staff.
Yep.
But
on the
all of the
20th.
staff will meet with the parents.
Yeah,
And so if we're forewarning them, hey, October 1st,
Yeah.
you can't drive this path,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And maybe the
what you're
communications
saying.
committee could
Yeah.
have something to go for the principal.
Right.
You know, at the middle school, hey, here's a handout. This
Here's our
might be,
plan.
yeah, this could
Yeah.
be very useful for you on, you know, that first contact night of, hey, welcome back to the middle school. Hey, welcome back to the high school. We put it all together for the the first day of school staff, but then we break it apart to say, okay, now the focus of this is gonna be a little different, but the information would be predominantly the same. We get Brian's group ready, instead of recreating the wheel, hey, let's create this soup to nuts for these 3 or 4 meetings that we're gonna have on the radar.
But the more we repeat it, the less people get upset with us.
Yeah.
Well, at least the story will be consistent.
And ultimately, it's a safety measure too, right? We want to keep the kids and parents safe and visitors on site safe, so that's a critical piece of that.
What time
Good.
on the 20th is that?
8:15.
8:15?
I like your idea, Sam, of a cartoon or just some, you don't need to give them all the floor plans. I mean, just some color blocks to show what's kind of going on, and maybe just show the parking lot and some site circulation, kind of what's planned, or just saying, stuff coming out. I like your idea of when the teachers meet with the parents, if they have a simple handout, they can say, here's what's going on, this is really exciting, we're thrilled about it, and except the fact that there's probably going to be some times when oops, we didn't realize that, but Story will do a good job of having it all. Probably some signage out there, some
for sure.
And some cones or some fencing and stuff like that. So it's just working together and making it one. But I love the idea of being proactive is so much better than trying to be reactive.
And you set the expectation that this is going to be an inconvenience. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But look what you get in the back end of it. Right. That's the whole thing is, it's going to be 1 year where it's going to be some inconvenience, but boy, when you're all said and done, we got some great improvements, and thank you for helping to support it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
So we went through kind of the high-level budget overview, the contingency discussion, what's in there and when it will fall out, and then the issuance for the upcoming dates. So, do you guys have questions? Any more? Ask away.
So we've talked about, the potential for where bids come in and then the contingencies. So appreciate you walking through that. And the groups and then the leadership team worked pretty hard to then squeeze us down underneath our number, which, if you remember, it was 500,000 over the last time we met. Almost $1 million trimmed out of athletics and $500,000 put back into the other projects. So there's some alternates. Some of those, 3 of the 4 were pulled out of athletics. So the timing for the alternates, would those all be considered in the second big bid package? The last 2 for sure, but like the storage building, and then I want to talk about the first alternate as well. So if we could spend just a minute or 2 on the alternates and what does that mean so that we're all aligned with when we get the bid back. Do we do anything with them in September, or is that just they're sitting there and that's actually a December or a later decision?
I think our alternates that we have listed, the last 3, 20, 21, and 22, those are all second issuance, so December.
More time.
So just to clarify, there'll be alternates on the 11-1, right? Like we'll put out the specs for the field construction, but we'll list the 3 alternates to be priced at the same time?
Correct.
Is that how that works? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That, and regardless of what happens with the storage building or the bleachers and press box or the backstop, that the grading and site utilities out of that baseball would be the same regardless of either scenario.
Okay.
So is there any work in issuance 1 that potentially could be alternate in or out?
That is currently in?
Well, so if you wanted to accept any of these alternates, 20, 21, or 22, is there any scope that you would add to any of the bid packages in issuance number 1? And I say this because the way you're going to select your low bid is combination of the base bid plus the selected alternates.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems fine, but what can happen sometimes is a person can be low in the base bid, but when then you take selected alternates, the low bidder may change. And so if you want to delay the decision on an alternate until you get the bids of bid issuance number 2, and it may affect who's low on a package and bid issuance number 1, it becomes complicated. It's actually happened to us down in Norwalk when we're doing some work on a new elementary school for them. So the language we need to insert in here just needs to be done correctly. But if there is no overlap, if the work, if these 5 packages is the same no matter whether you do them or not, that's much easier to deal with. But if it's not, we can deal with it. We just need to have the right language.
Right? Could you do a? That's a really good point. And what if you did 21 and 22 as an 11-1.1 and 1.2? Because those are pretty clean bids. The fixed bleachers and press box is probably as a one.
Sure.
You know, one contractor. Yep. And backstop padding, backstop netting, and outfield fence, windscreen might be the same, just one guy.
Sure.
Then you can say, hey, take the bid. It's still you just maybe you table it and say we're going to reserve the right to award it like in 60 days or something like that, or whatever, and it won't screw up your 11-1.
Yeah. So again, so the question ultimately is for these guys. Yeah. Is there any overlapping scope? Right.
Yeah.
And if there is, we'll have to put some language in to deal with it. And if there's not, then we just evaluate the alternates probably after a bid issuance 2, and just probably take them with that bid. And you'll have spent the majority of your dollars. You'll have a sense of where the project's at.
I could see potentially if you're going to say the bleachers come in and you're really close, you need to raise 50 grand or 80 grand, and maybe the boosters say, hey, give us 6 months to raise it and we'll get it. But you don't want to award it quite yet. That, like you said, all of a sudden that one piece could toggle from A to B, then you're kind of hosed, whereas if it was a standalone bid.
But won't it be one vendor that would do 11-1 and then those alternates?
Yes, but
one person wouldn't create the field and have another come in and complete it, right? So wouldn't we want them to bid the base and the alternate?
Those items are fairly unique trades. Fixed bleachers and press box, that tends to be certain companies do.
That's all they do?
That's kind of
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of standalone work. It's really about, would the site be left in a different condition if we did it or if we didn't?
Okay.
And if it has to be, if it will be done differently, where the early packages are affected, that's kind of where the issue could come. Again, it can be handled. There's just some language differences that we would have.
It's got to think we need some bleachers as a part of the first bid package.
Yeah. So I just think we need some clarity on that.
Yep.
We don't need to have it tonight, but that's the whole idea behind the alternates is, well, at what point would the board then be choosing that, or have the option to choose it? Mm-hmm. And as somebody mentioned, I mean, athletic boosters can probably come in and do some support, but my question would be, is that any of that going to happen in the first bid or in the first bid? And if not, great, it's even cleaner because we'll know more for the second. Mm-hmm. Right. But to Pat's point, is there some grading with the storage building that needs to be considered?
Or bleachers?
The other thing to remember is if it's pretty modest and minor, you simply kind of handle that through a change order. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if the difference in some grading is $5,000 or $10,000, we understand it's going to change if we took that alternate, and so the low bidder is doing their work and it's happening. We can get the pricing from them after the fact, and you need to. I mean, it's part of your evaluation process and the total of what it's going to cost. But for minor kinds of things, there's some other ways to handle it as well. So again, understanding the scope overlaps that allows the language to be written in a way that can get us through it.
Okay.
I guess down to Tyler's question, I don't think that 18, 20, 21, or 22 are in, well, 18 is actually going to be in issuance 3. That's the intermediate school.
Yep.
So it's 20, 21, 22, and all, Adam, aren't those all right now planned in issuance 2?
Yes.
Because they're all finishes on top of grading, so
Right.
that's gonna be in your second bid.
Yeah, the
package.
only thing that might be a little different or fall out of it, like Pat said, was the storage building foundation and stuff like that.
Is that in,
So currently, I don't think it's shown.
is it?
No.
Yeah,
Oh,
so currently it isn't shown in bid package 1, so that would be something that we would have to figure out a way how to
Go
verse it. And
back
go
up
about it.
because the
Yeah.
concrete folks are gone and you
Yep.
didn't leave a foundation
Yep.
for
Or
that.
we simply bid it as a turnkey piece.
Yeah, and that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
suggest
Yeah.
too. It would
That-
be
that
all
package
together.
does it all for that
So, 'cause you got-
storage building.
Yep.
You got a
That's-
concrete guy coming in and do all the site paving, all the flat work.
Yep.
Concrete topping, so you could easily, you're gonna have a guy on site doing it
Yeah.
anyway, so you could, this is leftover concrete.
So I think
side
that's,
building.
that's actually cleanest if that's actually how it works.
Yep.
If that's not
More
anything in
turnkey.
bid 1,
Yep.
because we'll
Right.
have more information. We get to bid 2, essentially there, we've got all of our information.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And then the last comment, just on the alternates, that intermediate school band room remodel was not part of our initial scope. But in the meeting, that's been brought up, Amy brought it up, and so we said, well, then let's make it an alternate. And
It's essentially new carpet and ceilings, I think, and paint in the band room, as well as, I think, there's some adjacent
Offices and practice rooms as well.
I think in her words, it was that in the intermediate school, that'll be the last space that
Area.
hasn't had finish upgrades.
Okay.
So if we already have a carpet and ceilings and painter on site,
Yep.
it'd be pretty easy, similar to what we did with the ICN classroom for this summer project, that it's a fairly easy alternate, just at least to expose the price and see what it's going to cost. So.
Right.
so timing on that makes sense. I think it's good to kind of
Yep.
capture so that we can make sure Deb's up to speed. Hopefully Brian heard it, so.
Good.
Okay.
Anything else, Adam, or
I
does
don't
that
have-
cover your things?
That's it for the items I was gonna speak to, so.
All right, great. All right, well, we have a few more things we'd like to
Yeah.
walk through.
So I think in one of the previous communications with the board, we were charged with going to another track vendor to get a second opinion on the condition of your secondary track. And we didn't kind of let the cat out of the bag of what the other vendor said. We just wanted to get a nice, clean second opinion. They essentially arrived at the same opinion, that any substantial repairs to your current track would not be recommended, that the base is pretty much completely shot. I don't know if you can see the picture on the left, the rubberized asphalt base underneath the track it's disintegrating. It's like dry soil. So anything that you do is likely going to just crack again. Some of the existing patch kits that you've done, those are some of the worst areas. And the reason for that is that the patch kits themselves shrink in the months after they're installed, and so there's fairly large cracks, and they kind of cup and curl, so you actually get level changes where you attempt to repair it. And those level changes, those are some of the higher hazards for kids that are running out here. So we have options to consider. The first option is the one that obviously the track vendors are going to recommend, is full replacement of the polyurethane track and asphalt base. Those are very high dollars. You kind of start the conversation, in the $350,000 range, and it goes up from there if you are trying to do some subgrade drainage work that I think is necessary out there. Then you could look at this a second option from that, similar to what like Ames Middle School did I think just last year. They went from a cinder track to, they tore out the cinder track and they put down just asphalt, and then they striped the asphalt. So there's no rubberized or polyurethane surface on top of that. It's not particularly nice to run on, but it accommodates them for what they need it for middle school athlete practice. It's still a high dollar amount. You'll notice the line that I put in there. Options 1 and 2 are above the line. That's what we could probably not afford under with the current allocated dollars for this project.
So roughly starting at?
That probably is in like the $200,000 to $250,000 range to tear out the existing and just put asphalt down.
What do we have allotted for this?
Right around
$80,000, just under 80. Yeah,
Okay.
78, I think is what
Yeah.
it is, for repair.
Yeah. Option 3 would be to demolish the existing track base, infill the hole with some soil and seed it. And that's right around what we have allocated, could handle that scope of work. So it'd return it to a grass surface. And there's some benefits there in that, number one, now it's a very low maintenance item. That if you put back a track or asphalt, that's going to be another asset you have to maintain over the life of it. If it's grass, it's fairly low maintenance, and also it's safer than the existing track. Nothing to trip on. So from a just safety and liability standpoint, those are all good things. In talking with Tim Pizzetti this afternoon, or actually it was this morning, he was somewhat excited about this option from the standpoint it could give him some flexibility, that it's wider. If there's grass along the sides, it's wider and could accommodate a potential soccer either practice field or a secondary stadium. So that's those scheduling challenges for track meets and soccer games, all trying to utilize your new stadium. There could be flexibility in the scheduling there. And the option 4 is to do nothing, continue to use patch kits, but it's our observation that those patch kits, though they might work in year 1, in years 2, 3, and 4, that they're some of the worst spots out there. So,
demolition and seating, does that fit within what we've budgeted, likely?
Yeah, close. We haven't done the full, worked up the full estimate on it. We did get a quote from Manats on the demolition of that and hauling off of that, and that was $62,000 just for the demolition portion. So you can imagine filling it back in with soil.
We have dirt.
No lack of dirt.
So really, I mean, yeah, we'd have to truck it across the
You got a really high track.
Yeah.
We can raise the level of the field across the whole field 2 feet. Yes. There are ice patty up there.
Down the road for practice field.
Well, the question to me that I would have is what are the track meets?
Right, with middle
That's
school.
right. That's
I mean,
the question.
so we don't need to decide on this tonight.
Right.
This was actually planned to be one of the last projects, right?
Correct.
So you're kind
It's
of bringing
very
options.
flexible.
Yep.
I guess I know you talked to Tim, but I think it'd be back to the program. And again, might seem great right now, but I want us to be thinking about 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And then it's hard for me right now to think we wouldn't need a second track.
I did do a little bit of research about peer districts. What are the Joneses doing, right? And the districts within your conference that have the secondary track, it's very similar situations to you. They've recently built a new stadium and they have an old stadium that they utilize as a middle school track. Now, if you look at them on Google Earth and you zoom in, all of those tracks also look like they're deteriorating very quickly.
Yeah, I guess what I'm looking at, Art, is 10, 20 years from now, we're a 4A school.
Correct.
So I don't want to compare to South Hamilton and North Polk right now.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Good point.
So that
we
would
don't need to decide this tonight, and I think time-wise, this is really good to bring this information, but I want to see some more background on what the curriculum needs.
Sure.
Right?
Exactly.
So I appreciate talking with Pizzetti, and this is good for us to know that, well, we were thinking that the option, well, the patching was going to work, but it's not. So
Yeah,
that's good to know.
And say, so you do come up that we need a second track, over the next 10 years, we're gonna need a second track. Well, is that the place we wanna put it? Probably. And then, well, can we get by with asphalt? Can we do that in year 5? Or no, we need to go with a full boat and schedule it in for year 6, or, whatever the case may be. But that,
Good point.
to me, because we don't want to fill it all in to have somebody come back and, okay, now you gotta dig it all out.
Right. It might be option 4 until you figure out what you're going to do.
Because when you look at option 3, we could run into the same thing that we ran in with baseball, softball, as far as needing a year off of that to let it grow. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think Tyler's point is well taken. Right now, we're just kind of looking at this. And I think that we do have to look down the road to see what's going to happen. But again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that tonight, but I do know that even if we did do number 3, we're going to have to be off of it for a period of time, and then we still have we're still going to run into some issues.
Yeah, exactly. So that was just hopefully a quick update on the status of that. So quickly approaching is our August 13th board meeting. Gail sent out an agenda for us to take a look at today. This board would have a public hearing directly prior to that board meeting where review the final plans and specs for this issuance 1, as well as the final cost estimate of work from Story Construction. That just gives the public the chance to say their piece about it if they have issues with it. And then at that board meeting, we could ask that you would release the documents to be publicly bid. So we would, and then Story and Halo, we would issue those documents in the days following.
I don't think so.
I just wondered if the plans were on the website.
Our school website?
Yeah.
I would hope not.
Not currently.
Not that we put up there.
I just, well, no, I don't mean like the detailed plans, but I mean if maybe you're going to put something together for the staff, just
for the
talking
20th,
about
for
spaces that we're going
part
to
of the
move forward
communications
on.
plan for
I just thought
logistics.
if we're looking for public input or questions on the 13th, it'd be nice if there was something they could look at before that date, right? I don't know. I mean, even if it's just blocks of color showing what our intent is over the next 12 months, right?
Just, not a bad idea that in the 40-some years I've been in practice, I've never had anyone ever come.
I know.
And that's why we did it.
Maybe the first time.
Yeah. The point is
Yeah.
that usually it's really more or less, the intent is that, hey, I object to the project and you're spending this money, and then the board can listen, take that input. And
So,
We did that.
I don't know, I don't know about the timing, because, to your point, it would need to be sometime before the 13th.
Right.
But I do like the idea of just the cartoon kind of drawing, here's the spaces. My concern initially was, wow, I don't think we want to start getting into feet and inches and nuts and bolts, right?
Right.
So it's about, well, this is where the boards come out with the 14 million, and this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is the timing, which is kind of the story to the staff. So as you prepare that, somebody review it, put it out on the website, great. I just would be concerned that we go into too much.
No, that's not what I'm asking, but back to school newsletter will be coming out, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be really great to have that cartoon drawing just for information purposes, so we can just keep hitting them with, this is what's going
It's the
on.
same
I like-
message.
Yeah, I like the idea of it, thinking more of it is the follow-up to the meetings, the public forums we had.
Right.
Hey, here's what's coming down the pipe. And put it in that context of,
Sure.
hey, here's the follow-up.
If you had the cartoons done, you probably could hang just a ballpark number of budget next to it. And then that would be the information. That's probably what they really would be coming and objecting to or offering a comment on. It's just basically the big picture, like you said, the color block one, and hey, it's this for this much money. So.
Yeah. We have a couple months to really hit it home that these things are going to be happening so that no one is disrupted or upset or questioning what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or surprised.
No, that's great. I think a great idea, and we'll supply all the stuff you need to do that, or we need to do that. So- and
The
we'll
hearing
get
will
that to
be
you by-
published on Friday's paper, the 3rd,
Great.
which is Friday, I guess.
We'll get this cartoon set, we'll get that to you by, you said Wednesday is when you're leaving, so
Yep.
we'll get that to you guys. Okay.
Okay.
I think that's
Awesome.
it. I think we already had all the questions.
Any other questions?
Brian, still there?
No questions?
No, it's really good. I want to add one thing. I love all the conversation around the communication. I think that's excellent, and our patrons will really like that.
Great, great, thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
I want to just thank all of you for being here, Pat and John and the team for all the work, so.
Good, thank you.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Moving into, what, 5th gear now, 4th gear?
Maybe 7th or 8th?
I'm just, hats off to you because I mean, it's just been remarkable for the scope of undertaking what we need for the next 10 years and to have, you know, favorable feedback on the process. It goes to all of you in the room, so thank you.
And I appreciate the information ahead of time. I felt like I walked in
Kind of knew what was going on.
ready.
I do have one oddball request for you, is when we go to take out our 3,000 truckloads of dirt, where will that exactly go over? We're having some complaints about the sidewalk being all broke up there from the last time. So think that over as to what that might look like, because we're getting some complaints about the bike trail, and so the sooner we can say that, hey, this section is where those trucks are gonna go out, so we're not replacing it, or they're gonna go out here, and so that's gonna be all busted up, and we're gonna close the bike trail. So we don't need to fix this, because we're closing it here.
Good. No, that's great.
You know, Snyder should put on their drawings a construction pathway. If it's not already on there, I'm not sure if it's on there.
I don't know
That's a
if it
good
is.
point, because then you could just say,
Well, that's just gonna be a boatload of truck traffic, and whenever that happens, people are gonna know, and this will be that inconvenience thing we told you about. That one should be a high level.
Good.
when are you gonna start taking your little Buick out there and helping haul that way? Is that gonna be part of your job? Other duties as assigned?
One pickup truck at a time?
I went and I talked to one of the folks at the DOT, and I said, can you use Gilbert gumbo? And no. I saw him hauling all that dirt out there on the interstate, and I said, gosh, I know where you can get 3,000 truckloads of dirt.
The Gilbert Gumbo, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one yet.
It's just Gilbert Mountain.
Gilbert Mountain.
That's all it is.
You were good?
We're good.
All right, thanks,
Yeah.
everybody.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye.
Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Stand adjourned.
Was he gonna meet with us on this?
Oh,
Said he
hey,
had-
Oh, he's gone.
We'll just take
Second
that.
years or?
Yeah, he
That's our SIP.
No, I feel good.
All right, what do you have for me?
First one is our investments.
First walked in, sorry about
Moving into
Right now, for what we know.
Oh, this was,
this, no.
So Art, what'd you think of the progress?
I would have liked to see more happening at the front,
I
but
think we have more.
Well, the front,
I
I don't think anything's happened.
But all the building projects that went involved, and that one lump bid.
Why am I listening?
Yeah.
See you.
So, I do appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we'll have to do lunch one of
Yeah,
these
that'd
days.
be good.
the classrooms over there, very
All the
nice.
good stuff going on at the center. All right. I hear the mayor.
I went to
It'd be
My
nice.
son is down in Book City, and they had a swing at stake feet. So I went down to that last year. He was introducing me to some of the people.
One
One of them was related to my Walsh Ford. He's actually their financial officer. I said, are you in? I said, pretty sure that you get those Gilbert doors. He was pretty good about it.
Sending this out, please don't fill it out. Please have one of your board members respond.
I'll do that. I don't feel too bad though, because damn it, they can't call me and tell me that they're coming to wrap up. I'm like, really? This hard?
Yeah, no, it's.
And I know that nothing happened, but I'm just like, nobody operates that with level.
Some of the.
I don't understand.
A lot of people.
But I know they're the cheapest.
Small dictionary.
Yeah.
What is engagement?
Yep.
What is
From
like
May
when we're talking.
Yeah. See, they don't have the government, that's the second one there is.
My definition may be different than yours.
Absolutely.
So.
you're holding them to get you very
No,
and they don't.
thank you, Joe.
And
It's no different.
we just found out yesterday that we're not going to have
We're
fire
gonna back order
here. I get it, it's a supplier issue, but if you don't have your fence last 2 days before he's new, we'd asked, and you just find out about it, why haven't you had your own on?
High level questions.
Mike's
on vacation, Grant's on
vacation. Now you step, hey, when are we have that fire? When's your ship date?
I hope they did.
When I come down, come down to your factory and I can pick it up.
Okay.
Because that's not.
No, it's.
It is a PR thing.
So actually,
It's a PR
You guys looked at my calendar.
we have it all similar.
Oh, yeah.
So, we'll see if we make it to No, we'll see how much we have.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna worry about it.
Okay.
If I'm here.
Okay.
But
I mean, now,
well,
you guys.
it's the board meeting.
Sure.
Just a minute, I got
You
it.
know, we'll meet at
Yeah.
on the 20th.
Second.
All right, thank you. You may not know that now.
So that's what I mean, I have.
Right, yeah.
So technically, we could start to
Yep, almost got that.